Hello, and welcome back to Railroad Quarterly, a recap of each quarter's major North American railroad and transit news. Today we'll be recapping the last 3 months from the beginning of September to the end of November of 2024. Let's jump right in. On September 3rd, 2024, the city of Charlotte, North Carolina voted to purchase 22 miles of Norfolk Southern's O-line between Charlotte and Davidson, North Carolina. This new right-of-way will be used for the new Lynx Red Line commuter rail, which will connect downtown Charlotte to its northern suburbs. The next day, CPKC tested one of its H20EL hydrogen fuel cell locomotives on a coal train. There's a joke in there somewhere. On the 6th, the Federal Transit Administration gave the LA Metro an $839 million grant to build the East San Fernando Valley Light Rail extension, which will open in 2031. On the 9th, Siemens Mobility announced that it will be opening a third rail equipment manufacturing facility in North America, this time dedicated entirely to high-speed train sets. This factory, being built in the town of Horseheads, New York, will open in 2026, building trains for Brightline West and possibly California High-Speed Rail if I had to guess. 6 days later, NJ Transit applied Lackawanna Railroad stickers to one of its Arrow III trains, similar to SEPTA's recent Silverliner 4 heritage units. 2 days later, CSX released its Nashville, Chattanooga, and St. Louis Railroad heritage unit, which I genuinely thought was a Pennsylvania Railroad heritage unit at first. The next day, the MBTA commuter rail's new executive cars made their debut on a governor's special train touring the new South Coast rail lines. Not sure why this was necessary, but I guess it is an okay use for these recently retired MBB coaches. On the 21st, Caltrain officially launched its electrification, with every train between San Francisco and San Jose operating with electric trains built by Stadler. Over the next month, Caltrain's ridership increased quite a bit, with October 2024's numbers being 54% higher than the year before. Definitely a great sign for the benefits of electrification. 2 days later, the MBTA announced that it would be replacing Draw 1, a 90-plus-year-old bridge at North Station that sees more than 200 trains per day. On the 28th, a handful of VIARail F40PH-2D locomotives were spotted being moved to CADRail to be rebuilt. Somehow, these nearly 40-year-old locomotives continue to serve VIARail and likely will survive for at least another decade. Speaking of new beginnings for old locomotives, the next day the first rebuilt SD70ACUs were spotted on Ferromex, who recently bought 30 of these ex-Norfolk Southern locomotives from Progress Rail. On October 1st, Wabtec announced its new autonomous locomotive known as the Maverick at InnoTrans 2024. This Cybertruck on rails is apparently already testing somewhere in the United States, although I wasn't able to figure out where exactly. 4 days later, New Jersey Transit released another heritage unit, this time for Conrail. GP40PH-2B number 4208 now wears the iconic Conrail blue paint scheme, and it looks absolutely amazing. On the same day, Amtrak's first Genesis cab car, or P42C, was spotted en route to Albany. It's expected that this new non-powered control unit will begin testing soon and eventually enter service on routes like the Ethan Allen Express. On the 8th, new R211S cars made their debut on the Staten Island Railway, beginning the process of replacing 50-plus-year-old R44s. The next day, the Fort Wayne Railroad Historical Society announced that it had acquired New York Central 3001, a 482 Mohawk locomotive built in 1940. Over the next few years, this iconic locomotive will be restored to operating condition and will run an excursion service alongside Nickel Plate 765. 5 days later, a small startup known as Rolling Stock Solutions unveiled its first F40PH-4C, which is a modernized F40PH passenger diesel intended to be leased to railroads in need of affordable yet relatively modern motive power. Unlike a traditional F40 rebuild, the F40PH-4C has been entirely remanufactured with new parts, a Tier 4 head-end power generator, and desktop controls. Since being unveiled in Boston, where its launch customer, the MBTA, is located, this F40 has been sent off to be painted and receive signaling systems. It's expected that in the near future, 10 Rolling Stock Solutions F40s will be leased to the MBTA. 2 days later, 9 Metrolink F59 PHIs were spotted leaving California for Mexico, where they'll be rebuilt in San Luis Potosi before entering service on new federally funded passenger services. Interestingly, on the same day that these engines departed for Mexico, the Senate unanimously approved a law giving the government the right to operate passenger trains on privately owned freight lines. If ratified by a majority of the states, this will effectively create a Mexican version of Amtrak, which has already been making progress with lines like El Insurgente, Tren Maya, and Ferrocarril Interoceanico. On the 19th, Railroading Heritage of Midwest America unveiled a newly restored Santa Fe B40-8W, which was donated to the museum by BNSF in 2023. On the 22nd, the first multi-level 3 car built by Alstom was spotted being delivered to New Jersey Transit. A week later, it was unveiled, and although it's not one of the powered cars, it'll eventually run with self-propelled cars, replacing the aging Arrow IIIs. The next day, the Utah Transit Authority announced that Stadler would be building as many as 80 light rail vehicles for Salt Lake City's tracks. These cars will be built domestically at the Stadler plant, which just so happens to be located right outside of Salt Lake City. On the 25th, Norfolk Southern announced a poll to decide a 21st Heritage Unit, clearly in an attempt to one-up CSX's recent Heritage program. Of the 4 railroads, the Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia Railway won. More on that in the next few days. On the 29th, the MBTA publicly displayed a mock-up of a new Type 10 Green Line train. More than 100 of these new low-floor light rail vehicles built by CAF are expected to enter service in 2027. The next day, CSX released its Clinchfield Heritage Unit, tying it with Norfolk Southern for the largest Heritage Unit program at 20 locomotives. Finally, the next day, following the sale of F59PHIs to Mexico, Metrolink said goodbye to 8 F59PH locomotives, which have apparently been sold to Canada's Go Transit. Word on the street is that they'll be overhauled by the Ontario Northland before entering service in Toronto. On November 1st, the first of 33 dual-mode Siemens Charger locomotives arrived in New York State for use on the Metro North Railroad. Over the next few years, these modern dual modes are expected to replace aging P42 ACDM locomotives, and unlike the Genesis, will operate in electric mode as far as Croton-Harmon, as opposed to just Harlem 125th Street. For those unfamiliar with Metro North operations, such as myself, this means that trains on the Hudson Line will soon become significantly less reliant on diesel, instead using third rail electricity whenever available. A week later, on the 8th, RJD America, a railroad preservation group, purchased CNO 484 No. 614, a steam locomotive built in 1948. In the next few months, it'll be moved from static display in Clifton Forge, Virginia, to Strasburg, Pennsylvania, where it'll be restored to operating condition and then moved to New Jersey for excursion service. That makes 2 mainline steam restorations in one episode. On the 11th, Chicago's Metra released an F40PH-3 locomotive, paying tribute to veterans. 2 days later, Norfolk Southern announced that it plans to convert a GP38-2 diesel locomotive into a battery diesel hybrid switcher. Unlike the in-house BP4 battery locomotive, this conversion is expected to be done in upstate New York by Alstom. Similarly, on the same day, the Grand Canyon Railway received funding to convert one of its diesels to battery power in order to capture energy through regenerative braking. While they didn't mention what locomotive this will be, I'd guess it'll be one of their F40s. Regardless of what engine it is, it's expected to hit the rails in 2027. The next day, the first Siemens Charger locomotive built for Montreal's EXO was spotted hitching a ride with a new Siemens VIARail train set. This charger is classified as an EC42 and is the first of 10 units expected to replace aging F59PH locomotives. On the 18th, following a successful entry to service for its new electric Stadler trains, Caltrain sold 90 gallery passenger cars and 19 locomotives to the city of Lima, Peru. Per California law, the vintage diesel locomotives would have to be made inoperable before being sold, but thanks to a waiver, these trains will be 100% functional. Caltrain is still holding on to one remaining F40, not counting the 3 recently rebuilt ones, which may or may not end up in a museum at some point. In other big news, on the same day, Manhattan congestion pricing was reinstated with a $9 fee for cars operating south of 60th Street. Starting on January 5th, 2025, this tax will be used to fund transit projects in New York City. Additionally, the surcharge is expected to be increased to $15 by 2031. The next day, CSX released its 21st and final Heritage Unit for now, celebrating the recently purchased Pan Am Railways. According to Joe Hinrichs, the CEO of CSX, this is the last Heritage Unit for now, but more may be coming in the next few years. On the 21st, the MBTA commuter rail exercised options for an additional 39 bi-level cars built by Hyundai-Rotem. This gets the T one step closer to eliminating its ancient single-level fleet, which they say is the goal for the next few years. On the 25th, TexRail ordered an additional 4 diesel multiple unit trains built by Stadler, which will be delivered in 2027. Unfortunately, on the same day, Amtrak P42 DC number 161 the Phase I Heritage Unit suffered a major engine fire in Washington, D.C. Only time will tell if Amtrak will repaint another locomotive in its place. Finally, on the 27th, yet another H20EL locomotive was spotted on CPKC. This time, it's another SD40-2, but instead of a Cowell unit, it's a traditional SD40. This brings CPKC's fleet of hydrogen locomotives up to 4, but considering number 1003 is missing, there could be another on the way. Anyways, that was the last quarter of 2024, and with 1 month remaining, it'll be exciting to see what news we have. Stay tuned for more videos in the next few weeks, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.